Hey guys, it's getting pretty late here, and this is my last slideshow, so it may be a little short or a little brief, and you probably won't be too sad about that. Um, if you would do me a favor, please, and be sure and tell all your friends that not only do they need to do the social studies, but they need to do the religion as well. Well, today we're back to First Samuel, and we're talking about Israel's need for a king. Before we can do that, though, we'd like to know who are the main characters in the first book of Samuel. That was in yesterday's notes. If you'd email that to me, I'll be so glad. Okay, so let's talk about Saul. To begin with, um, the book begins after Israel recovers the ark. The book begins with Samuel telling Israel that they really don't want a king, that their king is Yahweh or God. And they said, no, we want a king, we want a king. He warns them of all the things that a king will do. They said, no, we want a king, we want a king. And this is probably because they're looking around at their neighbors and seeing that they seem to have wealth, and they're associating that wealth with them having a king. So God sends Samuel out to anoint a king. Meanwhile, we have this guy named Saul. He's half Canaanite, which means that Canaanites we know way back in the time of Joshua were really tall. So our friend Saul is really tall. Hey, that rhymed, huh? And because of that, as Samuel is coming down the hill and Saul is coming up the hill, he's easily noticed because he's head and shoulders above everybody else. Oh, why is Saul looking for Samuel? Well, it's quite simple. His dad has lost his donkeys, and he's looking for them. He goes first to the guild prophets. These were prophets who their professional job was to like prophesy and tell you different things. And they say, well, we don't know where your dad's donkeys are, so why don't you go talk to Samuel? He's the man of God. So as he's going up the hill, Samuel sees him and anoints him, and he becomes king. Now he's a great warrior, but the problem is when you become king, you can't fight in a battle. We can't risk you being caught. And then Saul tries to act like a king instead of doing what God tells him to do. So Saul goes up against another nation, and he wins, and God tells him to kill everything. God God puts a ban. That's what a ban was, when you had to kill everything on that nation. But Saul, going by what kings did at the time, he does kill everything except the king, and he lets him live. And so as a result of that, Saul disobeyed God. So at that point, God says, you know what? You anointed the wrong guy. And so Samuel at that point goes looking for the sons of Jesse. Now Jesse had a bunch of sons, and so Samuel looks at each one of them and said, no, no, there's got to be another one. Well, he's out in the field watching the sheep. So they call him in, and Samuel anoints David. Um, and we don't know too much about David, except that later on he goes up against Goliath. Now, Goliath wanted single combat. This was very common. If you had a champion, you wanted their champion, and that way everybody didn't have to die. Um, so the Philistines have their champion, Goliath, but our champion would be Saul. You know, he's the only one probably tall enough to fight Goliath, and he can't fight because he's the king. So David accepts the challenge. At first, they try to armor David, but he can't even stand up with the armor. So he goes out and finds stones from the wadi, goes out to meet Goliath. Goliath is so mad because this kid is coming up against him. He even says, uh, am I a dog that you send a shepherd after me?" And David hits him in the forehead with a stone, knocks him out, and then takes Goliath's own sword and chops his head off. So with that, David then becomes part of Saul's household, and he marries Michaela, but Saul is extremely jealous of David. So, um, as you can see from our notes, Saul became extremely jealous of David. Then he turned to rage, and on at least 2 occasions Saul tried to kill David. Even Saul, however, recognized that David held a special place with the Lord and gave his daughter to Michal. Well, that's pretty much it. Sorry I'm not more energetic, but it's kind of late at night. And so, guys, we wish you well.